the University of Babeș-Bolyai in Cluj, bringing Romanian American literature and Romanian American voices to Romania, because that's something that has been sidelined. We usually try to bring Romanian writers to the United States, but very little exposure and attention is given to the experience of Romanian American writers in the country. So last year we held a session titled "Narratives of Belonging in Romanian American Diaspora," and one of our guests at the time was the next speaker on our panel today, Domnica Rădulescu, who left the country in 1983 as a political refugee from the communist dictatorship, and then settled in Chicago, where she obtained her master's in comparative literature and a PhD in Romance languages at the University of Chicago. She's currently, as you've heard from the previous presentations, both by Cristina and Roxana Kazan, she's the Edwin A. Morris Professor of Comparative Literature at Washington and Lee University, and the author of several acclaimed novels. I just mentioned Train to Trieste, Black Sea Twilight, Country of Red Azaleas. So I know many award-winning plays. You might know that Train to Trieste was translated in something like 13 languages, probably more. She's the winner of the 2009 Library of Virginia Fiction Award. Published a lot of nonfiction books, edited and co-edited a lot of books, including with young writers, up-and-coming writers, such as the ones that joined us earlier today. I'm not sure if Domnica is able to join us. I know she was not feeling well.
Right here, Theo.
Oh, wonderful! There you are. I thought I would have to continue your biography.
No, you can stop with the biography.
Almost everyone, I believe everyone here knows you. So tell us about your latest book with Roxana and your latest projects. We look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. Yes, I'm a little bit out of it, struck with a bad cold. But nice to see you. To see friends and collaborators, dear friends and collaborators, Cristina and Adela and Lucia and Claudia. Yes, I'd like to just say a few words about the newest publications. The first one in collaboration with dear friend and collaborator, wonderful artist, Roxana Kazan. She and I have something of an artistic intellectual marriage made in some heaven. And this is our second collection together. The first one was called Voices on the Move, an anthology bind about refugees. And this one is Immigrant Voices in the Pandemic. So we continued the series from On the Move to Spaces in the Pandemic, and actually Adela, Lucia, Claudia, they are included in this anthology, as Cristina had a beautiful play included in our first collection, Voices on the Move. I particularly appreciate co-editing and working on this collaborative creative projects with Romanian and other artists and colleagues, women artists and intellectuals and scholars, because they take us out of our isolation. You know, writing is very much a solitary enterprise, but creating collections also, an anthology also creates communities and connects people. It is both a creative, but also a sort of humanitarian project as well. And we need a lot of that in this day and age with the turmoil that our world is in. And then the second book that I'd just like to briefly present is my newest volume of plays called Madame Monde, Madame World, one act and short plays. So I think, I don't know, maybe Adela and Lucia, you'd like to read a bit from your poems. What makes this collection different from others that were published following the pandemic is the fact that it has great diversity of genres, of artistic genres. It covers poetry, illustrates poetry, little creative fiction, creative nonfiction, short stories, plays, dramatic works, hybridic works, and visual arts as well, just like our first collection. And also great diversity of authors and of contributors, of participants. It really is a lovely community of artists from many walks of life, many backgrounds, and we strive towards that, to be as inclusive as possible. And I'd like to read a couple of lines from it, from the introduction, and maybe yes, Claudia, you're here. Maybe you'd like to read something, and Lucia, just read a few lines from our introduction. You know, I was saying that my collaborations with Roxana have been so fruitful and so enjoyable and enriching, and we co-write the introductions, and in that endeavor also everything goes so smooth working with Roxana that at times I look at the introductions we co-write and I forget which one of us wrote what part. So immersive are we with each other. So I'll read a couple of lines from it. Voices on the Move, Trapped in Lockdown could also be the title of the present anthology. A tragic oxymoron lies at the basis of our book, as it gives voice to stories and experiences lived by refugees and displaced people, normally on the move or in various states of journeying, who were disproportionately affected by the recent pandemic, as it often turned our various nomadic or exilic states into their very opposite, states of entrapment. The present collection has emerged precisely in this passage from dangerous flight to painful stasis, to those who carry the burden and sometimes the bitter freedom of exile, as the Roman poet Ovid coined his state of banishment from his beloved Rome to the barbaric realms of Dacia Minor by the Black Sea. While edited collections by new or established writers emerged from the months of lockdown and pandemic agonies, some inspired by classical works such as Dante's Inferno, there are no works that document in artistic forms the challenges and trials of migrants, exiles, refugees during the dystopias of the past few years. So this has been one of my one of the most important threads and obsessions and themes that have haunted my creative, scholarly, artistic work, that of the immigrant experience, displacement, loss, but also memory and recovery and return, and reinvention of the self and creation of new worlds. With a heightened level of intensity and tenacity, numerous engaged artists of this in the past centuries have increasingly become like first responders for the violence done to our souls, minds, and bodies by various practices of oppressions, thus aiming towards creating through art processes and strategies of healing. So in each one of our collaborative works, and as well as in my own artistic endeavors, we strive towards this kind of both telling stories, as Adela spoke very eloquently about that, telling our stories, but also offering strategies of survival through art and possibilities of new world making, because we certainly need that new world making. This world is pretty frightening as it is right now, but we need to see the beauty in it. And I think the connectivity that we establish through our artistic collaborations is definitely something worth living for. And we have to keep hoping that it offers, as one, as Jill Dolan, one famous feminist performance theorist, has said, intimations of a better world. We have to keep hoping for that. So I will read just a little bit from my own contribution to this volume. And then maybe, is that okay, Theo, if Adela or or Lucia and Claudia would like to?
Yes, of course. No, I've imagined this as a moment of sharing, and Claudia Serra will also be reading her poems, and we'll have Dr. Lucia Kercher also joining us with a reading of her poetry.
Okay,
so
wonderful.
yes, it is for a moment of sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, my own piece in the volume is titled "Merciless Door" and My Three Houses of the Apocalypse. When the pandemic struck in the spring of 2020, my understanding of home, of a space of belonging, and of my relationship to the countries I was indelibly tied to shifted dramatically. Like many others, I thought often of the meaning and reality of an apocalypse, an end to everything. Strangely, I did not experience despair or fear, but rather a sense of relief. Suddenly, the world quieted, and that silence was both ominous and soothing. I had visions of clearer skies, cleaner oceans, unpolluted horizons. I loved listening to the sound of silence. News of the suddenly clear water in the canals of Venice with frolicking dolphins made me ecstatic. While American friends were anxiously deploring shortages in grocery stores, I smiled smugly, relying on my 2 decades of previous experience under a communist dictatorship, where gaping, empty grocery stores and shortages of every possible item from any kind of process of produce, from bread to cheese to toilet paper, were no exception but the norms of our daily lives. And when theater friends cried over the cancellation of their shows due to the pandemic, I felt no regret or resentment whatsoever, even though a much anticipated immigrant theater festival I was preparing in New York was canceled the very day before the premiere. When people were suddenly dying of this new plague at a terrifying rate daily, what did a show or 1,000 shows matter? Much like Irina and Chekhov's Three Sisters, for the quarter of a century I had lived in the small Virginia town where I moved from Chicago for the university job. I have relentlessly dreamed of returning to the vibrancy and roar of the big city, Chicago, New York, Paris. All right, Moscow, not so much, as an East European who grew up under the ominous shadow of the Soviet Union. In the end, it took a planetary disaster to make me fully embrace my surroundings and appreciate their beauty and plenitude in that baleful spring when the red buds, dogwoods, lilac trees, and hyacinth flowers were showing off their dazzling colors and scents indifferent to our human miseries. As I watched my son, who a month earlier had returned from New York jobless with a lost film project, or as I walked in that same yard ridiculously mimicking swim moves in a desperate yearning for my lifelong love affair with water athletics, or better yet, as I worked on a new writing project titled Letters from the Dead, because those catastrophic times opened up all the scarred wounds of my youth in a dictatorship and of my early immigrant years, I wanted to say to Irina, or really to my own self, stay put, sister. The countryside is exactly where you should be right now. You can always Zoom with the city people. As I walked the empty streets of the small town situated in a crook of the Appalachian Mountains, an equally ferocious sense of combined doom and joy washed over me, combination which wildly confused and discentered me, while also facilitating a new window into the meanings of home, belonging, our relationship to the earth and each other, in a word, a revelation. The following hybrided pieces of dramatic prose emerge precisely from these revelations and visions. And then there are the 3 houses of the apocalypse, something that moves into my more delirious, surrealistic forms of writing. And just before I give you the word, I'll just try to read the description of my volume of plays. It says, this collection features plays that explore nature, earth, environmental destruction, magic and madness from a feminist lens, with roles for female and non-binary performers. The plays in this volume include The Romanian Reunion, The Great Devouring, Crack in the Wall, and also in the world, and short plays. Fantastical and strange and roaring with life, Rădulescu's plays will challenge you and bring you joy. I hope so. I had a wonderful launch at the Rocco Center, the Romanian Cultural Center in Chicago, in the early summer of this year. So, dear friends, collaborators, if you want to read some of your work in the anthology, that would be great. Lucia, Claudia, Adela.
Lucia, go first.
Claudia, you haven't been in Lucia, you know, because you had a couple of book launches with Adela and Roxana. Maybe Claudia and Lucia would start. Yeah, is that okay with you, Adela, to hear them? And then you, of course.
Okay, I'll go first.